Welcome, bienvenue, and welcome back to Let's Learn the Electric Bass with Lyte. So last time we talked about positioning, and I know I said I was gonna do the right leg technique, but after watching the video back and doing a little bit of soul searching, I think it actually is going to be better here in left leg position, with it angled up to take most advantage of the screen real estate using that good old diagonal measurement that they use for measuring monitors. Makes everything seem bigger because, well, hypotenuse is bigger than the other two legs of the triangle. And so we're going to do the left leg technique, but you at home can do whatever you like. Whatever feels good probably is good. Also did a little bit of a change with the lighting. Let me know if it works better for you. I think it has solved a lot of the white balance issues except right here on my shoulder. I think it should be good. But today we're going to be working with intervals and with fretting. So fretting, when you've got frets, is a matter of putting your finger somewhere in the fret so as to make a good sound. Now, when you have actual metal frets going across the neck, you want to press right before the fret, such that the string comes into very sharp contact with the metal, but not so much in the middle that you can press it down and change the pitch. So right up with the metal fret, which you are imagining here, you want it to be right before the fret that you want. Such that you get a nice clean tone. If you get something that's kind of thuddy or buzzy, it's hard to get the buzzy tone on a fretless, but sometimes you can get a buzz if you're not pressing hard enough. So if you get that sort of sound, it's because you haven't actually depressed the string the whole way that it needs to go. Now on a fretless, it's easier to avoid the buzzing, but just as hard to make sure that you press it well and not get a thuddy muted tone. Now, sometimes you're going to want that mute. That is a sound that you can use musically, and sometimes you want it, and to get it, you just don't quite press it the whole way. And if you do it right on a fret, you chance getting a harmonic. If you go in between, you're less likely to get a harmonic. And if you do it with multiple fingers, you're even less likely to let the string vibrate in a way that you don't want. I personally have a very bad habit of letting my hand collapse when doing things higher up on the string, like this. This is not good for me. So I will do my best to keep my hand in a good round position, but I'm not always the best example. So when you see it, remind yourself, Lyte should have his hand in a nice round position. He didn't remember to do it this time, but maybe next time he'll be more intentional with the things that he does. So, other than that, fretting is about keeping your fingers near the strings such that you can move around nicely. And we'll cover more advanced topics when we're doing more advanced things. But today we're just playing some notes, so we don't have to get too deeply into it. Speaking of notes, we've got a new friend in this episode. Right over here. This friend is the circle of fifths. Now, there are some people who call it the circle of fourths. They're not wrong. They're just counterclockwise. Oh, it's much more difficult to go counterclockwise. I didn't practice counterclockwise because I'm a circle of fifths person. If you go around clockwise, it's fifths. If you go counterclockwise, it's fourths. And now you're like, Lyte, what are you even talking about? Fifths, fourths? We are not doing things with vodka here. Breathe. Those are the intervals that we're going to be talking about. The spaces between our good old-fashioned Western European notes. Now, you'll hear me say relatively often, Western European, because that is the tradition that this instrument comes from, and thus tends to use these notes. But this is, in fact, a fretless bass. I am not required to play only these notes. I can play whatever notes happen to exist. These notes are not a scientific truth. They are not found in nature. They are found in culture. And so if you go to various parts of Africa, you might run into a different set of notes with a equiheptatonic scale. If you head over to Indonesia, the Pelog and Slendro, very much not these notes. Some of them might match because of, globalization and whatnot, or a couple of minor physical phenomena that line up across cultures, but even then, it's a different set of notes, different set of intervals, because there is no reason that these should be the truth. And for a long time, even in Western Europe, these were not the truth. At least not as we know them today. We've standardized a lot of things. Going into the Industrial Revolution and all that, we were all about standards, weights and measures, everything needs to be. So now, we have our good friend A440. 440 hertz is an A. And you build everything else from there. But before we had that standard, some people liked A444, some liked A432. And nowadays, in the end, you tune to the pianist because they can't do anything about it. And so these over here are our 12 notes that we have in our Western European tradition. 7 letters. You're probably wondering, like, why are they out of order? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Y. Why would you do this to us, Lyte? Why not put them in order? Well, that order is particularly good for melodies. So if you're just going along playing a line, playing that line, the order A, B, C, D, E, F is good. It's fine, gets the job done in a way that makes a lot of sense. But the bass doesn't often get the tune, and doesn't always get to move by nice, smooth lines like that. It's more into the harmony of things, and this right here is a strong foundation for harmony. And now I just used 2 words that you may or not have heard before, so we should go over the elements of music real quick. Schmerg. That's right, schmerg. Used to be schmurf, got changed to schmerg. Sound. What it sounds like. Tone and timbre are in with sound. But it includes non-note sorts of things. Anything that makes a sound has a timbre and can be grouped in that S for sound. Now we're up to sh. So that H is harmony. Harmony, notes stacked on top of one another. So for example, as opposed to the M in schmerg, which is melody, which I played for you before. Sound, harmony, melody. Rhythm. How things happen in time. And particularly small chunks of time. So going is different from going okay, and then f or g, depending on when you're learning about schmurf or schmerg, is form or growth. It's how things change in large scale amounts of time. So schmerg, those are the elements of music that you can generally talk about reliably across whatever cultures you're going to be working with. Today we're working on melody and harmony. The h and no, not the h and of shm. We'll get to later. So much schmurg and schmurf. But yes, melody and harmony. Harmony is when it's all stacked up. Melody is when it goes in a line. And so the bass player tends to imply the harmony using melody. Very, very rarely will you actually get the chance to go. It's not the bass's job. The bass's job is to go. Now, that was melodic because it only had the one note and it was just moving along in a line, but it was implying a harmony that would be comparable to, and then something like that. I'm not very good with the chords just yet. And so harmony is very much based around these. And that's why I'm going to have you learn this circle before I have you learn it any other way. But you're also probably like, why don't we just learn the notes? Where the notes are on the guitar? Why do we need intervals? Well, the best example I can give you is which letter of the alphabet is Q. Now you're going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Oh, so long to get there. Right, but you didn't memorize which it was in the order already, so you need some way of getting there. And working your way through the alphabet is building your way towards where is Q. Now, if you could do it backwards, Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q. Hey, look, it's number 17. So if you have the intervals going the other way, it's even easier. It would be fastest if you just have it memorized. But nobody's memorizing all 26, unless you did. I mean, you could. You could memorize all 26. You just know what position they're in. Or you know the song, so you can just work your way through it and get to it. But imagine if you didn't even have the song. You don't even know the full order of the alphabet. Like me with the Greek alphabet. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and then I lose it. I forget what order the rest of it's in, so I can't even get to it. That's just how it is with the neck of the guitar. Sure, you've only got 12 notes to work with, 12 notes to learn, except each string has 24 frets to get down here. 24 times 4. That's a mighty 96 things to memorize. And you'll do it, eventually, because it'll be really helpful to have all 96 available frets memorized. That day is not today. Today, you're going to learn what note the 4 strings are, and we're going to learn 4 intervals. Next episode, we're going to learn the rest of the intervals, because I've talked a lot this episode. It's a shame, but you need to hear it. So we're going to learn 4 intervals, 4 note names, which can get you a decent way. Actually, it could get you the whole way, but it would be difficult. But once you know all of the intervals, it'll be much faster and easier to work your way towards where a particular note is. So let's get started. The notes of the bass, right down here on the bottom, is E. Next string up is A, then D, and then G. Hey, look, they're all right next to each other. It's not a coincidence. So, Imagine, if you would, you had a 5-string bass. Which note would you add? Probably not adding E flat all the way over here. I mean, you got an E right here. You probably don't need the E flat. And it wouldn't have the same relationship as the other strings. So you've got two main options. Do you want more bass? This E just isn't low enough for you? Well, then add yourself a B. B on the bottom. It's a great option. Or maybe you're a soloist. You love that high sorts of stuff. Then you could instead go to the high end and add yourself a C string. Circle of fifths is really handy for this sort of calculation. Now, this chart is available all over the internet. Just search circle of fifths and it'll give you lots of even more complicated versions of this chart. So if we go, like I said, around this way, you get fifths, and around the other way, you get fourths. But they're not just fifths and fourths, they are perfect fifths and fourths. We're just learning perfect intervals today, and those two are not the ones we start with. We start with the one that every musical culture is willing to acknowledge, the perfect unison. Unison, one sound. It sounds exactly the same. So say we had this good old E string here, and we wanted to make it sound like our friend the A string there. We take it and move it around the circle about this far. And we get the same sound. Now, you could get the same sound just by playing the same string twice, but it is possible to get a unison on two strings. And if it's possible to get it on two strings, it's possible to get it on more, but it's really difficult for your hands. So that's the unison. You go from A to A distance of nothing. Now granted, going from A to A doesn't always mean a distance of 0. Because this is A, but so is this. Now you heard what happened right there? If I were to play that, it's not quite a perfect octave. It is out of tune. When it is the interval that you mean, it's in tune. When it's not quite, it's out of tune. And if it's the wrong fret, it's just a different interval. And if you can't really hear the difference between and, don't worry about it. It takes time, it takes listening. But we have ourselves a perfect unison. Then we have ourselves a perfect octave. Now, the perfect octave is not quite as universal as the unison, because unison, everybody's got a concept of this note is the same as that other note. The octave, most people of the world across time have had the octave. They might not call it an octave because octave implies 8. So we've got 7 notes, which means there are 8 intervals amongst all of them. 8 notes later, you have arrived back at A. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Hey, look, it loops back around at number 8, hence octave. But like I said, with the equiheptatonic scale, there's only 7. Wouldn't call it an octave, but you do end up back this far from where you started. Now, why is it so universal? Well, because of the overtone series. The octave is that first overtone that we did using this harmonic here. And so this note and this note share everything but that very fundamental frequency. They are incredibly similar. And so to the human ear, they seem super related. And when you've got things that related, you tend to group them together. So this is an A, this is an A, this is an A. You give them all the same name, but they're in different octaves. So that's perfect unison, perfect octave. Next up, we're going to go with the perfect fifth. So we just go around this circle in this direction. So we've got our A. And now, again, this only works going up. Because if we go A down to E, that's not a fifth. A up to E, however, let's make sure this is an octave. There's our octave. So A up to E is a perfect fifth. Now, there are several ways to get there. Open string and then fret number 7 is a perfect fifth. But there are other ways. So we had this A from the unison exercise on the 5th fret of our E string here. And then if we go up 1, 2 frets on the A string, that is also a perfect fifth, but it works anywhere. This top open string, we go to fret number 7, or we start here, a 1, 2. Oh, that's my hand getting all weird again. You hear how that wasn't quite the same? So those are perfect fifths. You need to get that in your ear, be like, oh, wee, oh, oh, and that's a nice perfect fifth. Now you notice how I said this going down was a perfect fourth? Well, it is. It's going around the other way. E to A, again, always thinking up, is a perfect fourth. And no matter where you move it, well, that one I didn't quite aim right. All of those sound the same because they are all perfect fourths. Say you had an E flat and you wanted to go up a perfect fourth. Where are you going to end up? A flat. Say you're on a G flat and wanted to go up a perfect fourth. Well, it's not exactly a B, it's actually a C flat. So if you look here at the G to a C, G, C, G flat, C flat. Well, C flat is a B in good old equal temperament. And you're probably going, Lyte, you haven't talked about flats yet. I know. I wanted to work you through hearing before telling you what these symbols right here meant. Because you've probably been staring at them the whole time, burning them into your brain. Well, this flat right here, the little B next to the B, little B next to the E, that flat means to make it lower. Just a little bit. We'll cover exactly how much next time. And the sharps, which you don't see very well in this chart. Let me put my finger under that so you might be able to see the sharp next to the C. It looks like an octathorpe hashtag, a waffle of some sort or other that raises it by just a little bit We'll cover how much next time. But this circle will help you through a lot of what you need to work with. So take a look at it, memorize if you can B, E, A, D, G, C, F, or F, C, G, D, A, E, B. Either direction is fine, and you don't have to go into the flats and sharps just yet because we'll get there. But for the most part, you want to memorize F, C, C, G, G, D, D, A, E, E, B. You don't necessarily want to memorize the whole sequence super fast, F, C, G, D, A, E, B, right away, because then you'll be like, what's a fifth above D? What's a fifth above D? Whereas if you memorize D, A, C, G, F, C, A, E, E, B, you only have a handful of things to memorize. It'll be easier to get in your head. But you do need to work on memorizing that while you're practicing playing and hearing versus. Oh, right. I didn't show you how to do the octave anywhere. Like the fifth, you go 1, 2 frets down, but instead of going across one string, you go across 2. Again, works anywhere. And in typical guitar bass parlance, they're called shapes. This shape is the octave shape. Skipping a string, 2 frets towards the bridge is the octave shape. So, your homework, if you choose to accept it, is to memorize this order or this order. Whether you memorize the fifths or the fourths, doesn't much matter, one or the other. It'll help quite a bit. And get into your ear the O, E, O, O, and the Here Comes the Bride. Because if you can hear it, you can play it. Or you can sing it, or you can whistle it, whatever you're going to be doing, but you need to be able to hear it. This episode went a little longer than I wanted because I talked too much at the beginning, but I think that's okay. The next one should be shorter. We'll be covering the imperfect intervals. And I will see you in the next episode of Let's Learn the Electric Bass with Lyte.